Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here, and today I would like to discuss the poster boy of Resident Evil, Leon S. Kennedy. The S stands for suplex, of course, because that's what he did and that's what made everybody fall in love. For anyone who genuinely does not know, the S stands for Scott. His name is Leon Scott Kennedy. So, Leon, the poster boy. Leon! Everyone loves Leon. I'm more of a Claire guy myself. I mention that I mention it as much as I possibly can because I get tired of people acting like Leon is the best thing since sliced bread. I know he did a suplex, don't get me wrong. My first suplex was like during my second playthrough even. I kicked the door just to like deal with some enemies. I was like, I'm gonna kick them and then they'll be stunned. I didn't even know the suplex was a thing. I kicked the door, somehow it kicked somebody and they spun all the way around. And then I was just mashing the button and it was a suplex. And I got it with the head explosion. So the first suplex I ever got was my second playthrough of the game, and it was a surprise from kicking a door open and just body slamming somebody. And it was like, holy crap, I did not know that existed. So of course, that was pretty neat. And I know everybody thinks he's super cool because he does some pretty cool things. He has the bingo line, he has hasta luego, extremely underrated. That's my favorite one. I know everybody does bingo, but I'm more of a hasta luego. Like that's like my favorite line in the whole game. But Leon is cool. I've always liked Leon. I like all the characters, when it comes to Resident Evil. Except for maybe the two dudes from Revelations. I didn't like them that much. But other than that, I like pretty much everybody. But Leon Scott Kennedy. Of course, he was the second batch of protagonists with Resident Evil 2, him being, teamed up with Claire. And back in the day, he was just the rookie cop. He was the rookie cop. He had blue, Claire had red. And it was just a fun time. And they go through all their adventures. He runs into Ada and she just, he's doing all sorts of things except having sex with her. Who knows if that'll ever change? One day, maybe. I don't know. They like playing with us. We'll see what happens. But I'm sure he does just fine. But Leon's cool. I like Leon. Of course, he's like the dude. Like I said, he ever since 4, like it literally like changed the game. Like I don't think Leon was everyone's favorite character until 4 became like most people's like favorite game. And then once that happened, it was kind of like, well, what if we just kept putting Leon in everything? Because honestly, that's really where it comes from. Like it's really like more of a saturation thing than just he's just that cool. Although I would say probably even if it was just 4, it would still be somewhat similar. He'd probably still be the poster boy, but it probably wouldn't be as fervent. There it is. Simply because of the fact that he is the protagonist of all the CG films. It's Leon. Like Leon is like the guy. He's in literally every last one. And the only one where he's not the sole main character is I think there's only 3 movies where other characters even show up. I think technically in the first one, in Degeneration, it's Leon and Claire. But I think it does start with Leon and then Claire shows up a few minutes in. So you could say that one's kind of split down the middle if you want to. Every other one is like just him. And then I always forget the order of the movies, but obviously at some point, Chris and Rebecca were in the movie, so I say it was fairly split on that one. And then of course, Death Island was just everybody having a great time, and he shows up as like the last character actually. But outside of those 3, he's the guy for all the CG stuff. Like it's always just Leon. It's not like somebody else gets to go on an adventure or anything else. It's like Leon's doing something and somebody else is there too. Like that's how it feels with every CG movie. And they don't suck. I mean, don't get me wrong. The CG movies are hilarious and amazing, and they're like that perfect blend of the ridiculous things we kind of don't like in some of the later games. But because it's done in movie form, it's just funny to watch and it's more entertaining. Like him fighting the dogs, like they were like at hyper speeds. Like they were like a mile back and then they caught up to him. I'm like, these dogs have hyper speed. Like that doesn't even make sense. And then I don't think it was even him. I think it was Chris that had the crazy shootout on the rooftop. That was ridiculous. And they were like 2 feet away from each other but couldn't shoot. Insane stuff like that. But always fun to watch. And Leon does some wild things. I think in the second movie he got punched by a tyrant into a pillar and I'm gonna just walk that off like no big deal. I'm like, okay, that's cool. No problem. But Leon is the poster boy of the franchise. And I think it's really more the saturation in combination with the fact that so many people like 4. Obviously, at this point, the RE2 remake, I think, definitely helped because everyone loves that one. So it's like, hey, if you already like Leon from 4, now you can play RE2, and then you can enjoy, Leon and Claire's story again in another great game that's just, an updated version, somewhat, of the original Resident Evil 2. If you don't want to go backwards, all the way to PS1, now you can experience Leon and Claire in modern graphics, modern controls, all that good stuff. And of course, just about we all love that game, despite its, its issues here and there. We still love that game, so it's like, okay, that's another great point for Leon. but 4 was like the game changer that brought it about. And then they're like, well, what if we do these CG movies? And of course, I mean, let's be honest, that's probably like 1% of the actual fan base is like, oh wow, I see more Leon because of the movies. Like, how many people really watch those CG movies all the time? So the movies probably play a little part in it just because it makes his name get brought up more. Like, if you watch random YouTube videos on people that know, I would say as much as I do, they'll reference it, you know, even if you aren't aware of it, they'll reference the movie, so you'll hear his name more, like, oh yeah, he's in all the CG stuff. But Leon had 4, and that was like the game changer. That was the thing where it was like, oh, that's so many people's favorite Resident Evil game is like Resident Evil 4, and it's because it's Leon, it's because it's actiony. So he gets to have that simply because that game was so effing amazing. And then of course things continue. RE6 comes along and it's like, well, that didn't really do what anybody wanted it to do. But Leon still looks kind of cool. He's got a nice jacket that you could buy for like $1,200 or something crazy like that. And he does some cool stuff. I would say he still has my favorite campaign. It would be either him or maybe Jake and Sherry's, because I really like the story of that one. So you're kind of one of those two. But he has some cool stuff. He has like some of my favorite stuff with the whole city level. But it's still Leon. It's like, okay. And once again, that one's branched out. It's like everybody, you know, it's kind of an everybody's here type situation, except for Jill, of course. But it was kind of an everybody's here type of situation. And so Leon gets to be popular again, even though it's it's a game that isn't exactly popular. It's infamous. We can't say like it doesn't have any notoriety. It's definitely infamous. It's not famous, but it's certainly infamous. But he gets to be in that, and then we have some more CG movies that continue on. And as time progresses forward, it's like, okay, we have some things happening here and there. It's like, all right. And then the remakes hit. And when the remake hit, I think that's where things really changed. That changed for Capcom as a whole, where it was like, RE7 of course brought things back for them, and then they kept going, and it was like, what if we just did remakes? It already worked with the first game. What if we did that for the second game? And then it was amazing. And so of course you got Leon back in the fold, you get Claire back in the fold, makes more people enjoy the character. And then of course you keep going, you got 7, then you get 8, and then you have the RE4 remake, which I think is better than the original RE4. And then it just brought it all back all over again, where it was like, look at all the cool stuff you can do, and it's an even better game. Personally speaking, obviously everybody has their different opinions. I think the games are so vastly different that, you can definitely have a difference in opinion between OG4 and Remake 4, because they are very different games. But I think the remake is better than the original. I think that's the only time that's happened outside of the RE1 remake. I think 2 is super close, but because of like the weird issues in the AB campaign situation, it's kind of like, if I had to pick, I'd probably still go OG2, especially because they don't have Leon and Claire really interact at all, that is honestly probably my biggest problem, even despite the AB campaign issues. That might be my biggest issue in general, where it's like, they just don't even have them interact. Like, especially if that was never the plan, then they definitely should have been interacting more. If they weren't going to do an AB campaign, they should have put all that effort into just having the characters talk to each other more. But different topic for a different day. But Leon as the poster boy. He's been all over the place. He's the guy who does the suplexes, he does the kick flips. Now he gets to finally use the chainsaw himself in the games, which is going to be insane. Everybody's talking about it. He's ripped. He's a hot older dude. We'll have to see his comparisons to Chris, and I've seen the references where people are like, oh, he definitely worked out with Chris because his arms are like insanely buff. So it's super funny to see him just get older, and then it's like, that's just the transition for all the guys as they just become Chris. like Barry was the first old guy, but after that it was like the second generation of characters getting older was just like, well, Chris got buff and he got to punch boulders, so if it keeps me kicking, then I guess I'll just do that too. So I'm excited to see what Leon actually does when it comes to RE9. I don't think they're gonna kill him. I should reference that. I don't think he's dying. I know that's a big thing, where it's like, oh, he's kind of sick. It's Leon, and honestly, I don't know if I even believe that they would take that kind of chance, if I'm being totally honest, like killing a character off. But if he is the second playable character, it's not necessarily the craziest thing, but also it would be like the craziest thing ever, because if they actually killed a character, and this isn't, no offense to Ethan, but I'm sorry, dude, you got like 2 games and they would never show us your face. So it's kind of just like, oh, he died. It was sad, but also, are we ever gonna see Rose come back in any capacity? We might. I think we should. There's a whole lot of stuff going on the Revelation side of things that we just been waiting an eternity for. I don't think that's gonna pop up, but that's a discussion for another video. So I don't think he's gonna die. I think it'll be, the classic thing like, oh man, it was super close, almost bit the bullet, and then he'll make a cool joke, something like that. They might even have him almost die, and then it'll be like, man, that was close. You know what's crazy? We should go to bingo or something. Like, he'll say something about bingo. Like, they'll make a reference somehow. They'll somehow make a reference. But I don't think he's dying. I think he'll be fine. I'm excited to see just exactly how everything plays out, but also just to play the character. I skipped over the last like big game deep dive because I was like, nope, I'm seeing too much. I don't want to see anything. I saw enough. I saw like one speck of a cutscene where Leon hands his gun to Grace because it's like, oh, he goes in to do some stuff, and things, obviously he shows up in the hospital that she's at, but it showed like a slight interaction between them, and I was like, that's enough. That's too much. And I saw like one enemy, and I was like, I'm seeing too many things that I don't want to see anymore. So I'm done. So like I haven't watched that. I just saw some clips, and everybody's doing like their gameplay previews, like, hey, we got to experience Leon's gameplay, and I'm like, you know what? I'd love to watch this, but there's too much new stuff for me to look at, so I'm out. So I kind of backed out of it. I'm like, I'll see it when I see it. Like I am good. So I'm looking forward to seeing everything that he does in the game, like all of his context, attacks and stuff like that they're bringing over from RE6, which has amazing gameplay. It's just the game itself is not even remotely scary, and the story is somewhat ridiculous. Or they'll just do random stuff like Leon's campaign in RE6 where they try to force it to be scary just by forcing you to walk slowly. That was really stupid. That was really dumb. Like, everyone talked about that when that came out. It's like they try to force you to be scared by making you walk slow, and it's like, this is idiotic. Like, you're forcing me to walk slowly for like the first 5 to 10 minutes of this game just to build up like a fake sense of fear. And it's like, just make something scary. If you want it to be scary, just do a jump scare. Just do that. Just like, if you're gonna be that cheap, at least let me move at a normal pace. How about that? Like, I think that's a fair trade. Do a cheap jump scare, let me move as fast as I want. I think that's a very solid trade, because making me move slow does not add tension. If anything, it just makes me annoyed because it makes me assume like, oh, well, probably around this corner this thing will happen or that'll happen. And it was just a really dumb thing. And I remember playing that even in the demo. I think they kept that, at least a portion of that moment where you're forced to walk slowly. And it was just like, wow, this kind of sucks. But Leon was still cool. That's where he was dual wielding and everything. He probably got that from Claire, just to throw that one out there. But he comes in dual wielding. He's got his cool. I do think he had like the coolest quick attack with him having the dual wield, where you just shoot random enemies, and then the final person he'll shoot both guns as the last shot. I always thought that was super cool. And then the combat rolling around and crawling, even though it's super unrealistic, like you can literally crawl forward. I'm like, the amount of strength you would have to have for your feet while you're laying all the way down, your feet can just pull you by your butt in jeans on the ground. I'm like, you have to have, Chris is punching boulders, so I guess that's just normal, BSAA stars RPD strength there, I guess. But I always think of that. I'm like, that honestly might be the most unrealistic thing in that whole game, is like, you can crawl forward just by using your feet. I'm like, man, physics, that's crazy. But he had some great combat. And I'm very excited to see what they do for him in 9, especially because we don't know what other weapons we're going to get. At least based on what I've seen, I would assume that everything I've seen from like the last showcase is the same as the demo. So, obviously you have like your pickup weapons as far as like the chainsaw, which I did an unlockable thing where it was like, things we want to see as unlockables in RE9. Check that out, first of all. I would love to know your thoughts on that. But one of the things I mentioned was I would love to see the chainsaw become a permanent weapon. Like, you beat the game and it's like, hey, here's an infinite chainsaw. If they pulled it kind of like Bayonetta, where all the enemy weapons is actually an unlockable weapon, where you can, it's some crazy stuff that you have to do to get it, but you can basically get one weapon that turns into all those enemy weapons that you can just pick up and use for a couple seconds in the game. So I would love to see them do that. I know that's not Capcom, I'm just referencing Bayonetta, but I would love to see them do that for RE9. And it's like, we beat the game, and then Leon can just walk around with the chainsaw all day long. That would be pretty sick. But so far, chainsaw, which is just a pickup. We've seen the handgun. We've seen the shotgun, which he totally stole from Ada, by the way. That's definitely like Ada's shotgun from separate ways. So I was like, that's cool that they brought that one back. And then, of course, his axe. So those are like the 4 things we've seen so far. And like I said, I skipped over that last deep dive where everyone's got like their gameplay impressions of Leon. So I don't know if something else was shown there. I would assume not, because that's all the same stuff that we saw in the actual footage, from the big showcase that they did. So we've got like his 4 weapons. We got, like I said, pickup weapon, axe, handgun, shotgun. I guess I shouldn't say handgun, because it's definitely a Magnum. But Magnum, shotgun, axe, and then the pickup chainsaw. So I'm excited to see what other weapons we end up unlocking. Of course, the big thing, the giant question is, how does the gameplay work going between Leon and Grace? So I'm curious if they'll consistently switch those weapons back and forth, or if over time she builds up. Like, they said that they were doing the scary thing. I think by the end of the game, she's not going to be playing like Leon, but I think it's going to be more akin to maybe RE2. Like maybe slightly more actually, like you actually have weapons to defend yourself with by the time you get, at least like to the halfway point with Grace. I think it'll be more like in game of, same with RE2. So it won't feel as scary, but it'll still be scary. Like you'll be moving around a lot slower compared to, let me just shoot you in the head real quick and then hit you with a roundhouse or hit you with the axe and then watch your head explode. I cannot wait to see how bloody this game gets, because that was so insane. But I was like, I love how it looks. Like, it's ridiculous. They're really going all in on, like, the blood is very important to this game, and so it's just all over the effing place, which is crazy. Although I think it's also a part of the mechanic, considering what you can do with Grace when you pick up the blood from enemies and stuff like that. So I think that's why it's such a big mechanic, where they're like, well, we have to put the blood everywhere so you can actually collect it to make like all the different stuff that she needs. So I think it's like great to look at and just, over the top, but also, gameplay. So I thought that was pretty nice. But I'm excited to see what they do with Leon. I hope he doesn't die. As much as I'm like, man, I'm tired of seeing Leon, I don't want him to be dead. That's ridiculous. I don't want them to kill Leon. He looks cool. He always has a nice jacket. At least at this point, the jacket is kind of like his thing. I will say, if we're going Leon outfits, if we had to rank them, we're going, not like unlockable costumes. If I was just randomly, since we're discussing Leon, we might as well talk alternate costumes, favorite weapons that he's picked up over the years. Costume-wise, classic costumes, his RE4 costume, I think, is my favorite costume. Like OG4. Like, I wish that was something that they put in the remake, was his original jacket. I don't like the remake jacket. It looks too big on him. Like, I'm definitely not a fan of the new jacket. I like the old jacket, but I like the new undershirt that he has. I think the shirt that he has in Remake 4 is better than his OG shirt, but I'm not a big fan of the new jacket. So that's just me. But OG 4, probably 9. Honestly, I love the new jacket he has. I'm a sucker for just like a black jacket, and then he also, once again, has like another shirt on, so I think it's like navy blue, so they have the blue in there. Kind of wish they did that for Chris, where instead of him having a black like turtleneck or something, he just had like a really like dark green or like olive green. Like somehow I wish they put some green in there, because I'm like, I still want the characters to have like at least a hint of their color somewhere. So that was one of the things where I was like, dang, I wish they put some green somewhere on Chris, and they just didn't. He looked cool though. He looked cool in the long jacket and the turtleneck when he was just going out there, just giant muscles and machine guns. So it was still pretty cool. But I was like, man, I wish they threw some green in there. But I like his costume for this, so this might actually be my second favorite. And then I would definitely go RE2 Remake specifically. I like the remake version of his costume better than I like the original version of his RE2 costume. And I think it's because in the modern day graphics, the remake costume just looks a little weird. It doesn't look bright enough, but at the same time, that was like a PlayStation, obviously PS1 graphics, so everything was like super vibrant and bright. Like, I thought Claire's outfit was straight up pink for years. I thought it was just straight up pink. So it was really just like a vibrancy thing that they do. Like, that's a big part of why I like, Chris's original costume, I like because it was almost like a bright green a little bit. And that was, once again, more just because of the limitations. You play RE1 Remake, it's definitely dark green. Like, that's kind of how they changed that around for his color scheme. But I always liked the vibrancy of like the OG games, where it was just like the colors just really popped on the characters compared to, being a lot more realistic, admittedly. I like the over the top vibrancy color scheme of the OG games, but that's why I like the remake of 2 better than the original. And then even his remake, or his original costume in the remake, I think just comes off looking weird, because it's not, like I said, it doesn't feel bright enough. So it's like in this weird in-between. I'm like, I just don't like it as much. So I like the dark blue that he has in the remake. So I would say OG4, 9, and that could change depending on, when I actually play the game and like see the character up close. 9 could end up being my favorite. I think it's, like, I don't know, it looks really cool, but we'll have to see 100%. Like, with the jacket on, with the jacket off, like, we'll have to see. But it's definitely up there, like, just from what I've seen, because we've seen both styles with him, like I said, on and off. I'm like, well, it could be 4. For me personally, it could be 4. But OG4, 9 already is number 2 for me. Remake 2, then OG2, and then I would give it to 6 after that. I thought the jacket was so plain that I was just like, like, it just didn't really do anything for me. I just thought it was like super duper plain, and it was a black jacket with like 2 gray stripes that were super, I can't say, it's not like they were impossible to see, but they just didn't really do much for me. It's just like, it's fine. Like, it's an okay outfit. It's no, nothing crazy, but it was just kind of okay. But that's kind of what I would put as far as his costumes. If we're going to alternate costumes, you already know I'm going to say this suit is the number one. The pinstripe suit. You don't even have to have the Tommy gun. It's just the suit. It comes with a hat. It's amazing. And then if you get the Tommy gun, I know what they call it, but I just always call it a Tommy gun because I just like that name. But you know, you get the Tommy gun, and then it's like, here you go. You throw the hat up in the air. Just a little bit of flair. Like it just looks nice. It just looks nice. Also, if we're going with weapons, Chicago typewriter, definitely one of the best. Striker is my favorite shotgun. I know everybody has their differences. One of my favorite things to reference when it comes to OG RE4 is that as a kid, I legit had no concept of the fact that all the weapons had different like skills and abilities and they were used for different things. I thought every gun was like, okay, now here's the new best gun. I thought that's how it was. I didn't realize it. I think if you play Resident Evil Village, that's how it is. Like every time you get the next set of weapons that unlock, the last one is the best one. If I'm not mistaken, it could be the same as 4 where I just never realized it. But I think that's how it is in 8. And that's how I thought it was in OG RE4 where it was like, well, you know, oh, you get this new handgun. Oh, well, that's the better handgun now. So you just switch to whatever the newest thing is. So that's how I was for a while. So I stuck with the Striker. I still like the Striker the most, even knowing, you know, I was much better with it when it came to the remake of 4. The Striker is still my favorite one. I love when once you get the high rate of speed, still annoyed that, you know, just one of those minute things. They didn't give us the drum. They did not give us the drum in the remake of 4. That was an insanely hard piece of ice. I almost guarantee you guys even heard that. That's crazy. But I was still upset by that. I was like, dang, I just wanted my 100-round drum and I could just, you know, just go in there crazy. It was just like a machine gun shotgun. That's how it always felt. So I always loved that gun the most. But Striker is definitely my number one. Shout out to the Skull Shaker. I think it just looks super cool. Also, the Skull Shaker, I'm pretty sure is like the same shotgun from RE3. I've mentioned this like a couple of times now, but RE4 literally has RE3 weapons in it. And like OG4 has it and Remake 4, because the OG4 has the Killer 7, which is definitely the same. It's a Magnum in 4, but it's the special handgun in Resident Evil 3 that you get in gun parts A and B. It's the same gun. Like you look at it, it's literally like a purple handgun. They just made it a Magnum in 4. And then the Skull Shaker is basically, you know, a short, it's not sawed off, but it's a short shotgun. And that's just like the one that's in RE3. Gun parts, you know, shotgun parts, A and B, you get that little shotgun. And then in the remake of 4, you literally get the Resident Evil 3 assault rifle. And I hate that they did that because they made it an effing rifle, which is why there's literally mods to make it a hip fire weapon. But that was a weird thing that they did. But I do like, you know, a lot of those weapons. Shout out to the Punisher, favorite handgun. I don't care what anybody says. I don't need extreme, you know, power or anything if I'm shooting through 5 people at one time. I'm telling you, especially because in the remake, you can shoot through shields. You couldn't do that in the original. It was only like actual physical bodies. In the remake, the shield counts as one of the bodies. So when you go in there, and you don't have to have like the 5, you can literally just have like the basic implementation of shooting through one person at a time, or shooting, you know, 2 people at a time. The shield counts as one person. You can do headshots straight through the shield, guaranteed, if you have the Punisher. So if you've been on and off about the Punisher, I'm just saying, once they start bringing those shields out, obviously the wooden shields, you can't shoot through a metal shield, but the wooden shields in the castle, that's not a thing. You just blow right through them. It's exactly the same. It just shoots straight through, and then you can hit someone straight in the face. You'd be surprised. Even though that area still killed me a bunch of times when I first went through it. Like, they were swarming me. The first time I played that, I was like, this is just as tough as it was in the original, if not even tougher sometimes. But all in all, Leon's had some good weapons. I definitely, like I said, handgun-wise, Punisher, shotgun-wise, Striker, sniper-wise, I guess it would be like the last, whatever the last sniper is, whatever like the semi-auto one is. Well, I guess the last one would be like the assault rifle as far as the remake is concerned. But the semi-auto is my favorite one. And then I don't like machine guns, so whichever, you just pick. It doesn't matter. TMP, just because I like calling it that, because I like the name. But that's really it. That's really it. But I like Leon. I like what he's done. I'm ready to see somebody else. I'm ready to see Claire. Like, I want to see Jill. I want to see Jill more than Claire, but, you know, when I think Leon, the first woman that comes to mind is Claire, because I think Jill and Chris, and then I think Leon and Claire. So I always think of Claire first, but realistically, if I had to choose, I'd be like, please, let me see Jill. We're probably going to get Claire in the remake of Code Veronica. If that does get announced officially, I would love to see that. But we shall see what ends up happening. But either way, the poster boy is back. So I would love to know your thoughts on Leon. Is he your favorite character, like so many people? Are you tired of seeing Leon, like so many other people? Like, you know, it's out there for sure. We see him a lot. Let somebody else play. Don't kill anybody else, but just let us play somebody else. I know they aren't all going to be doing kicks and flips, but they also did like in Mercenary. Like everybody does something crazy at this point, so it's not like they have to do a suplex. I don't think he's going to be. He might. They might still sneak that in there, but everybody can do some sort of kick or punch or whatever at this point. So it's not like it has to be Leon because he does that. Everybody has context attacks at this point in the franchise, so it could be anybody. But we'll see what happens. But like I said, we'll love to know your thoughts on Leon Scott Kennedy, the poster boy of Resident Evil. Does he deserve it just because they keep using him all the time? Or does it need to be somebody else? I would love to know your thoughts, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.